It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends it. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in. Happy Monday. Not Monday. It's Tuesday now.
I'd say I hope it's not Monday.
Boy, the days just are flying by.
I already got through that crap. I don't need it to be Monday anymore.
We don't need repeats of Mondays. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker here on the Full Court Press on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, streaming on 1069thefan.com and the 1069 The Fan mobile app. It's where you can also find past episodes, podcasts of all of our shows are there. And you can find it on the website, on the app, or wherever you subscribe to podcasts. Just search Full Court Press, my name, Jason's name. You'll find us. If you don't, send us a message on the text line, and we'll try to help you.
Yeah, we'll send you a link. So yeah, you can find it on, as you said, a number of different places.
435-339-0321. That is the text line. If you have questions like that, that's where you can submit them. But today's a pretty big day. Mountain West Conference announcing its postseason awards, end of season awards, I should say, handing out their individual recognitions and their team recognitions as the regular season has concluded throughout the Mountain West Conference. And a number of Aggies landed on this list. Was anybody notably absent? We'll talk about that, get your thoughts and your reactions as well. But looking at that, and there's coaching changes and rumors and coaching changes that thought might happen but didn't happen.
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest news is the coaching change that I was sure was going to happen that did not, but you can probably guess why it didn't happen.
Yeah. So a couple different things here on the docket today. And then Utah State basketball coach Jared Calhoun, Mason Falslev, they held press conferences yesterday, and we didn't have a chance to get to those. So we'll try to sneak those in sometime today. And then stick around next hour because one of the most exciting games on Sports Talk Radio makes its triumphant return.
It's one of my most favorite things to do. It's not hot take or not a take. It is the return of bowl basketball or bogus.
Yes.
Where I quiz Eric on his knowledge of the names of bowls, multi-team events, and whether I can catch him out thinking that the one I made up is actually
or if it
a
comes
bowl.
completely out of thin air.
I've got my list. I prepared it very eagerly this morning, so we'll have that in the second hour. But we got to get to football starting off here real quick.
Yeah, so let's start off with Mountain West end of season awards. And I don't know that I was overly surprised with any of these. The coach of the year went to Jason Eck. Makes total sense. I mean, turnaround season right there in the hunt for the state or for the conference championship game. Freshman of the year makes total sense. Micah Alejado. Was there any freshman who didn't win the weekly freshman of the week awards?
The only reason I didn't think that Mike Alejado was going to win the award is because I forgot he was technically a redshirt freshman.
Yes. Special teams player of the year, Kanze Matsuzawa. He's been a great story all season long. He's been money. He's been solid. Those, makes total sense.
Yeah. When I was prepping, because I was starting to write the awards article that I put it on Cache Valley Daily, and I was filling in who I thought was going to be the different award winners, and I had Jason Eck as coach of the year, and the Hawaii kicker, whose name I can't pronounce, had him as special teams player of the year. I didn't fill in freshman of the year because, again, I forgot that Alejado was a freshman, or I would have just put him in because I know he played last year, and so I forgot that he didn't play enough games to get rid of his red shirt. And then I had one of the co-defensive players of the year picked correctly as Jackson Eck was on there, although he's not the one I picked because I picked Chris Johnson. But those two ended up being co-defensive player of the year, which I think is a good result because those two were just far and away your two best defensive players, and trying to pick one of them is like it's pretty crazy because Chris Johnson is like one of the best corners in the country, and then Jack Snecht absolutely put up numbers for the Lobos this season. So
Yes.
Two very deserving defensive player of the year award winners. And then as you said, Jason Eck. There's not really another choice for Coach of the Year with the what he's been able to build with the Lobos. Could have imagined Bronco Mendenhall winning that if the Aggies had won the last two games, or two of the last, or all three of the last. If they'd won two of the games they lost in the last month of the season, that probably would have gone to Mendenhall.
Yeah, he certainly would have been in the discussion for sure.
Yeah.
So those were not surprising. And there was some debate about the one position, the one award which we haven't discussed yet, and that is the Offensive Player of the Year. And we heard going into last week 3 different coaches talking about Bryson Barnes as the Offensive Player of the Year, or as Coach Eck Coach Entz referred to it as the best football player in the Mountain West. But Bryson Barnes did not get that award. It ended up going to Anthony Colandrea from UNLV, their quarterback.
Yeah, and it's really hard to argue against Colandrea. You do have the opinion of 3 different coaches, which, weighs a lot, but media also, vote on this. And for people like us, because I'm also media, you look at Colandrea, he led an offense that finished first in points per game, first in total offense. And you compare him and Bryson Barnes, and I don't think Bryson Barnes beat Colandrea in any statistical category, save for total rushing yards, and that wasn't by a whole lot anyway. And I think he beat him in rushing touchdowns, but again, not by a significant margin. And so you stack Colandrea up to Bryson Barnes, and it's really hard to make that argument statistically. You basically have to make a lot of sentimental arguments or niche arguments about, how much did Barnes mean to his team versus Colandrea to his. Again, you do have the opinion of 3 coaches, which has merit, but again, that was a tough hill to climb, and it's why Bronco Mendenhall, after the Fresno State game, said, I think Bryson Barnes is going to be Player of the Year, but, and he didn't say it outright, but basically implying that Barnes wasn't going to win it.
Well, in wins matter.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, wins do matter. And Colandrea had more wins on his resume than Barnes did. So Colandrea, you can debate whether his role in that or Bryson's role in his team wins, but at the end of the day, Anthony Colandrea led his team to more victories than Bryson Barnes did.
Yeah, so I know there were some people that thought Bryson Barnes got robbed. This isn't a robbery. You can disagree. Clearly, some people thought that Bryson Barnes was the best offensive player in the Mountain West, and I think that can be a legitimate opinion. I don't think you would be wrong in believing that. It's just something that people are going to disagree on. This isn't like Miyashketa being robbed of, basketball player of the year back in, I think it was 2021. I forget the exact year. They gave it to some guy from San Diego State who did not deserve the award.
No.
Over to Miyashketa. Of course, many San Diego State fans would then say the same thing about Jaden Ledee over Great Osobor, and there's probably a similar argument there considering Ledee ended up being an All-American. But yeah, this was an award that went to a deserving player in Colandrea. And while you may think Barnes should have won it, I wouldn't consider it a robbery or a bad snub.
Yeah, Colandrea was a solid player. He led his team to more wins. 4 weeks recognized as the Offensive Player of the Week in the Mountain West. A lot of things are comparable, passing yards, rushing yards, that Colandrea did for UNLV, and ultimately they ended up winning more games. But if that game at UNLV goes a little bit different, that game against Boise goes a little bit different, then I think you'd have to hand it to Bryson Barnes as the guy.
Yeah, probably. I think he very well could have won it. Partly because maybe that factor of being in the conference championship game would have helped. Although when I actually looked back, I looked at the history of Offensive Player of the Year awards, and there wasn't a very substantial correlation between being in the title game and winning Offensive Player of the Year. It's not nearly as success-driven as the Mountain West Player of the Year is in basketball, where there is like an almost flawless correlation between winning the conference and getting Player of the Year, save for the time Omari Moore won it. It was like the one time there was a significant deviation there. But I think it definitely would have helped. It really would have helped his case being in the Mountain West title game and potentially hosting the Mountain West title game, as opposed to UNLV, who's in the title game, and Calandria has the statistical edge that factors into it. But we haven't even mentioned who on the Aggies actually made it, except for kind of alluding to Bryson Barnes being on the All Mountain West.
Well, yeah,
because we've not named any of the players that have been on there for the Aggies.
No, we haven't talked about the first team or the second team, but just the individual awards. Kochek gets it, the coach. I think Sean Lewis makes a compelling argument to be in consideration. We've talked about how Bronco Mendenhall would make a compelling case for the offensive player. Bryson makes a compelling case for defensive player of the year. John Miller would make a compelling case. But
for defensive player, no.
For defensive player.
Not over Jackson Eck or Chris Johnson.
Jackson Eck deserved to win it. And Johnson deserves to be in that discussion as well. For the point of this discussion, it just would have been interesting to know how many votes did go to some of these other guys. How close was the voting on some of these awards that ended up being handed out?
I think Sean Lewis probably got a few votes. Bryson Barnes probably did get a few votes for Offensive Player of the Year. I don't think John Miller got a single vote for Defensive Player of the Year.
Eck has been really consistent for New Mexico.
Yeah.
And Johnson made some crazy plays. I mean, a defensive player determined wins absolutely for San Diego State multiple times this season.
Yeah.
So I get those guys. I'm just curious how close it may have been for some of these others. So no Aggies win individual awards, but do any of these guys that we've talked about, do any of them land on the first team? Do they at least get recognized on first team All Mountain West? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, and
another one who we haven't mentioned.
Yeah, we were having this discussion after the show yesterday, because we were thinking of bringing up all these awards on yesterday's show, kind of to preview what was going to happen today. And I was of the opinion that they probably weren't going to get any. I just didn't think that with the Aggies being a little further middle of the pack standings, and without players that I felt like were considered stars, because I looked at the other positions and I was like, I thought Barnes was going to end up on second team behind Calandria. Wasn't sure if any of the wide receivers were going to end up on first team. I thought there's some pretty good cornerbacks, linebackers, defensive backs. I just didn't think there was going to be room. But I turned out to be wrong. They got 3 on there. We mentioned John Miller. He was first team All Mountain West, getting there at linebacker.
Well, so I thought John Miller would have a case to be on there.
You thought.
What we didn't know is just how many by position they'd allow.
Yeah.
Based on the list, neither one of us realized that many linebackers would be considered.
Yeah. How many linebackers did they put on?
They put on 5.
5?
Yes.
Yeah, if you'd told me there were 5 linebackers, I would have said yes. Because John Miller is probably your third best linebacker in the Mountain West. So yeah, putting him on there, that was pretty obvious. But Noah Avenger also getting on there. And I think you had John Miller, Noah Avenger, at least John Miller. And I think you had
John
Noah
Miller
Avenger.
for sure. You thought that Avenger had a case.
Yeah, but I didn't think he would get in.
And then we both kind of talked about Braden Pagan as being maybe on the possibly could, but he might not.
Yeah, and where they had 3 wide receivers on the first team, that's where he finished, I think, second or third in yards. I was writing this down earlier. You'd think I'd remember. He was third in receptions, either second or third in yards. I think he was like 8th or 9th in touchdown receptions. But he definitely had a top 3 season as a wide receiver. So there being 3 receivers. The top 2 were both Hawaii wide receivers because they just threw it in.
Well, one was Hawaii. The other was Danny Scudero for San Jose.
Yeah, the two of the leaders in yards.
In yards, sorry.
Because he had Scudero, I think he led the conference in yards. Then there was a Hawaii. It might have been receptions that I was looking at, where the top 2 were Hawaii players. But yeah, you had Scudero, I forget the Hawaii player.
Jackson Harris.
Yeah, Harris. And then you get Braden Pagan. So very deserving. I think all those. Scudero, if he had maintained his pace from earlier in the season, he would have been Offensive Player of the Year. But he kind of slowed down at the end. But still a really good season from him. So, yeah, you have Braden Pagan, John Miller, Noah Avenger all make first team, all Mountain West, which is better than I was thinking, though. If I'd have looked at how many players per position were in, I might have changed my tune a little bit. You had 2 players named to second team. We mentioned Bryson Barnes, but also Miles Davis. He makes it on the second team, but those were the only second team selections for the Aggies. They had another 5 named to honorable mention. And that was Brady Boyd, the wide receiver, safety Brevin Hamblin, defensive tackle Gabe Iniguez, Ike Larson, and Bronson Olivau. So those are the 10 Aggies to make all conference for the Mountain West.
Well, and consider getting Ike Larson on that list after missing half the season. That's a pretty impressive accomplishment. You just got to wonder what it could have been had he had a full season available.
Second team minimum, and first team just. I mean, the way he played the last few weeks of the season, probably first team, because he was on par with what Noah Avenger was doing in a lot of ways. And so he very well could have been first team. Mind you, there are a lot of really good players in the Mountain West, so it's hard to definitively say he would have been first team. But the fact that he'd been first team already in his career would have weighed in his favor. But I think he finishes his career having received some. Well, did he get honorable mention as a redshirt freshman? I want to say he did. I'm trying to think if he got some kind of All Mountain West honor every single year, minus his true freshman season where he redshirted. I think he would have gotten some kind of end of season All Mountain West honor every single year. He might have even gotten Freshman of the Year.
I don't know about that.
I know he was like a freshman All-American, or was close to a freshman All-American. I don't know who won Freshman of the Year 4 years ago.
According to the USU release, this is Larson's 5th season in the program. He received all Mountain West honors for the 3rd time in his career. He was a first-team selection as a sophomore in 23 and a second-team pick as a redshirt freshman in 2022. So there you go. From the Utah State Archives.
There we go.
Let's go to the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, getting some reactions on that. 6726.
These are a couple off topic.
Yeah, a couple off topic here. Some people listening on the pod. Listening on the podcast later, but I would guess the reason Utah doesn't host a bowl game is weather in late December. They generally try to place bowls in warmer locations, except for Boise. Froze my rear end off there 2 years ago.
Yeah, Boise, New Mexico. But yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of any other relatively cold weather places.
Don't they have some, occasionally they'll have a bowl in like Fenway Park or...
There is one of those this year.
Yeah, so occasionally they'll have them in colder temperature places.
But yeah,
unless it's in a dome.
But that probably is a factor. Because, yeah, thinking about it, I can't really think of any outdoor cold or coldish weather places.
Boise's definitely
save for Boise and
stands out.
New Mexico's kind of in there because I don't think they really get that southern, or do they get? Does it stay warmer down?
They've got some elevation, so they do tend to get a little bit cooler, even though it's a dry climate. 2444, as a continuation of yesterday's discussion on the show about the release of the net rankings. I noticed today that Joe Lunardi has USU as an 8 seed in his most recent bracket, making them a pretty safe at-large contender, even if they didn't end up winning the conference tournaments. Not that we support Lunardi on this show, but Bracket Matrix also has USU as an 8 seed. All this is very early, obviously, but a great sign for NCAA tournament prospects. Hope we can keep it up. And we'll talk more hoops next hour.
Slowly but surely, I'm getting our texters to shy away from Joe Lunardi.
Yes, thank you.
Although he has improved his record in recent years, he's actually gotten better. Like, he used to be like toward the bottom of the rankings. Now he's actually moving up. So, although apparently Jerry Palm is like literally dead last. I saw somebody say that. I didn't double check that, but I'm willing to repeat the Jerry Palm slander without fact checking.
8313. You think Bronco Mendenhall will be poached?
No,
I don't think so.
There were some rumors about him to Oregon State. I never really bought them.
That was the one that I thought maybe there could be something there. But
yeah, maybe. But that's a lateral move. I know Oregon State doesn't think it's a lateral move, but it's a lateral move, potentially down,
right,
depending on like the resources that are able to be dedicated there. I know Oregon State once upon a time had a lot more, but not so much anymore. And Utah State's had a somewhat better recent history, as shaky as the Aggies have been. Oregon State's also been shaky, and also a factor of Bronco, personally liking where he's at as far as, the environment, the state, close to family. There are factors in favor of Utah State, and there were basically none in favor of Oregon State, at least over what Utah State had. But unless there's a really crazy trickle down from the current coaching cycle that we're in, I don't see Bronco getting poached.
Yeah, I don't see it. 9315 texting in, a couple of texts here. A few spots USU got robbed on awards. So who? Like individual awards?
Yeah.
Or
Here's the thing.
Team?
And this is my rule. If you're gonna say Utah State got snubbed, you have to say who got snubbed and who they get in over, and say why they get in over that person.
Okay, so here's some follow-ups. John Miller for sure. Why not on the defensive side more than what he received? Did he not have the most tackles in the conference?
So he was first team All Mountain West. He did not have most tackles in the conference. He did not have most tackles for loss. He did not have most sacks. He didn't lead the conference in anything. He was close to the lead in the conference in a lot of
there were stretches of the season where he was, but when it was all said and done, Jackson Eck was the most consistent, highest performing linebacker. So I think that was the right call. And then the Sun Bowl in St. George for one in Utah would be a great place for a bowl game.
Well, they already have the Sun Bowl.
Well, it's not called the Sun Bowl down there, but there is a Sun Bowl. That's in El Paso, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what a Sun Bowl already exists.
Yeah, but that stadium is...
You can call it the Dixie Bowl.
Yeah. Or the Greater Zion Bowl or something.
I have no clue why anything in Utah is called Dixie.
This represents the South.
Utah is not the South.
Southern Utah?
It is not culturally South. It is not geographically South. I mean, well, maybe the most southern part of Utah is maybe
it's more south than some places that call themselves the South.
That's true. But and there you get to call it culturally South.
Yeah. No, that stadium down there, well, they've done some renovations. It's not very big. You got a track around it. It wouldn't be good for a bowl game. I don't even know their capacity, but
they're building a PGA course down that way. That's about the most relevant thing for St. George, at least outside of Utah.
Yeah. All right, we've got to take a time out here. We're well overdue, but continue to get your reactions to the end of season awards from the Mountain West. Coaches coming and going. We got some teams announcing coaches, others that coaches were rumored. We'll discuss and debate and updates next on the Full Court Press.
It's back. Jarek's Fine Jewelry in Logan is having our annual Pick a Pearl event. If you've attended this in the past, you know how much fun we have. And if you haven't come before, you don't want to miss this exciting event. Still, only $10. Pick your oyster, open it that day, or save it for that stocking stuffer surprise.
Mark your calendar, Friday and Saturday, December 12th and 13th.
Pick a Pearl at Jarek's Fine Jewelry. Look for the bright green cars.
Jarek's Fine Jewelry. Make it special. Make it Jarek's.
Thank you for letting Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat, the Allergy Clinic, and the Hearing Aid Center care for your family this year. Be sure to call us for an appointment before the end of the year to make the most of your cafeteria or flex funds. Located in Providence and North Logan, Cache Valley ENT also has offices in Box Elder, Rich, Bear Lake, and Franklin counties. The entire team at Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat wish you and your family a healthy holiday season. Go to CacheValleyENT.com for details. Most insurance plans, including Select Health, are accepted.
At Mountain Valley Heating and Air Conditioning, now's the time to feel the love and the savings. With current tax credits and government rebates, save up to 40 and 50% on new heating and cooling systems. From residential tune-ups to commercial HVAC projects, Mountain Valley has you covered. Rebates and credits end at the end of this year. Take advantage today. Go to mtnvalleyhvac.com and start saving while you feel the love.
Over the past few years, strong and crazy weather patterns have battered various parts of the country. Northern Utah and southern Idaho are not immune from its share of wild weather. Be prepared for power outages with a Generac backup generator from Golden Spike Electric. They are your local source for Generac sales and service. Generac keeps you in control when bad weather strikes. Golden Spike Electric, powering your peace of mind. Online at gsegenerators.com or call 257-3016. They also service other models.
Northern Utah and Southern Idaho's home for sports. It's the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. Love to hear from you as well. 435-339-0321. Mountain West Conference end of season awards handed out today. No individual honors for Utah State players or coaches, but Utah State getting a number of players on the first team, all Mountain West. That's Braden Pegan as a wide receiver on the offensive side. John Miller and Noah Avenger on the defensive side. And on the second team, Bryson Barnes as the quarterback for second team, but also Miles Davis, running back for Utah State, making it on the second team, and a number of honorable mention Aggies as well. But there's there's been some changes. This time of year, there are a lot of changes that happen with coaching throughout college football. They're trying to alter the calendar a little bit to maybe change some of the craziness, but it hasn't changed it at all. It's been even more crazy this year with a lot of coaches at high-profile institutions getting let go in the middle of the season, and then coaches being, changing positions from playoff teams to go to non-playoff teams.
Yeah. Well, the firing of coaches in the middle of the season, it's not the newest phenomenon, but like the willingness to buy out these absurdly high, contracts. That's, it's just, from
LSU is paying 3 coaches right now.
Yeah.
They're still paying Ed Orgeron.
Yeah, it's just absurd.
And Brian Kelly.
And now Lane Kiffin, or soon to be Lane Kiffin.
Yes.
And there have been some really great articles and studies and columns and different things like that done about all of these firings, just talking about how athletic directors, having patience with a coach is a virtue, and there are organizations that have seen it pay off. BYU had Kalani Sitake posting mediocre seasons, and now the guy is leading them to, some of their highest heights since, 1984. And, heck, Utah State with Gary Anderson the first time around, he had some mediocre seasons early on.
Yeah.
That ended up paying out. Matt Wells went 3-9 one year. A couple years later, he's taken him to one of their best seasons ever in 2018. There is a virtue of having patience with a coach. But as some have already written, I've retweeted a few of these, but some have noted that athletic directors can't sell these mega donors who these programs are now completely reliant on. Like, they basically, with all the revenue sharing and all this stuff, they cannot function without these people donating gobs of money every year. And they can't walk to him and go up to him and say, hey, we need this latest $10 million gift or whatever, and say, we need this from you. But that donor, who oftentimes, to be quite frank, is an idiot. They may be rich, but in terms of football, they're idiots. Much like we all are. Like, I'm pretending I'm smart, but like I'd be the same thing if I was a billionaire donor. I'd be an idiot.
Just because you're a fan doesn't mean you're an expert.
Yeah. And, like if I was in charge of a program, I'd be a complete idiot relative. So like I'm talking about, it takes one to know one. That's where I'm coming from here. But they're idiots. But they end up making decisions because they have the money. You know, it's like Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones has the money, and in his own sphere of making money is a genius. But in terms of football, he's an idiot. But he gets to make the decisions because he has the money. And so the donors, like, you know, you look at Crumble Cookies, the guy who's leading the charge now in terms of football. I mean, maybe I can't specify, but like, there's a guy who thinks he's the smartest guy in the world and knows what he's doing in terms of football. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But rich people are making the decisions. And if they, for whatever reason, think the football coach is the problem, which, mind you, that's a lot of fans. All the fans always think the coach is the problem. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just not the coach's fault because they don't have the players or it's just bad luck. You know, there's a lot of luck that comes down to it. And sometimes it's the players. And coaches are also imperfect. They can be good coaches but make mistakes. But people will say, all right, one bad season, the coach is terrible, has always been terrible, and we're going to fire him, and the next guy will be even better. And that sentence is filled with logical fallacies.
Yeah.
And
well, it's not even that bad season. A coach will have a bad stretch of games, like what happened at Penn State. He had a lot of great seasons, and he had a bad stretch for a couple games that didn't go their way, and there was no patience involved there whatsoever.
Yeah, and so
they still don't know who their coach is going to be.
And so you have this lie about firing the coach will fix everything, and people believe the lie. The fan base and the rich donors. And since those people are the ones giving money, they get to make that decision. And the athletic director, even if they know that the coach is not the problem, and they have to make that decision to fire the coach because otherwise they can't raise funds. So that's just the way it is. That's where we have this epidemic of firing coaches who probably shouldn't be fired. And then you also have the epidemic of paying coaches way more than they're worth. Because you look on the other hand, like the coaches are important, but they're not $90 million important.
5338 texting in, Dear Ole Miss Athletic Department, since your coach, Lane Kiffin, left for a conference rival, please consider the resources of the 5338 Sports Re-Education Academy and think tank at your disposal for your bowl game. Yeah, but you know what? The challenge has been that there's pressure for these athletic departments to make a change because at the coaching level, because you have the early signing period and then you want to try to retain as many guys as you can on the roster. Well, they've shifted the transfer portal back a little bit. We'll see if that really has much effect on anything. Where I think at the end of the season, we're still going to see players declare their intentions, take to social media. But the calendar here is still wonky, and it's not really great. Just the athletic calendar doesn't really jive with the academic calendar, and they're clearly just saying we don't care.
Yeah. Well,
and so we have enough money, and we're unregulated in this way. So we're going to do whatever we want, how we want, when we want, and there's really nothing we can do but pound the table and say, "Gosh, that just looks silly."
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing about the calendar: like the calendar is an issue. I'm not going to say the calendar doesn't have its flaws and is not contributing to this. But here's the other aspect of this. And it's something I've wanted to say. I wanted to say yesterday. We didn't have time to get to it. But this whole thing about the calendar being at fault. And you have all these talking heads who are really the mouthpieces of agents, especially agents for the coaches. You see how many people have connections to a bunch of these coaching agencies, and they're all the ones spouting off about, oh, it's the calendar's fault, and Lane Kiffin should be able to coach Ole Miss. And it is infuriating to see a literal propaganda campaign coming out of media organizations. But there's that whole thing. But, you know, I've not exactly been doing this job for very long. I can't speak from long experience. But from talking to coaches in press conferences, for 5-6 years or so, you hear terms like buy-in a lot. Buying into the program, buying into what we're doing. Coach Calhoun, to put it harshly, won't shut up about it because he wants his players to buy into what they're doing. Nate Dreiling wouldn't shut up about buying in. And I put it harshly, but like there's a reason they won't shut up about it because it's necessary.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to buy
Meaningful.
in. It is the most important thing, and it's why they don't shut up about it. Because if you don't buy in, then it's really hard to have success. And so all these coaches talk about buying in. You got to buy into the system. You got to buy into this. You got to be, all in. Is Lane Kiffin all in? No.
For himself.
Yeah. He didn't buy into his own program.
No.
The second a perceived better option came up, he was gone. Didn't even say goodbye. Walked out on his players. And, heck, Brian Kelly did that multiple times. You hear his story about him, and there's a lot of troubling things, to be honest, with his tenure. But, you hear all these coaches talking about buying in. And you hear Bronco, too. Bronco ditched New Mexico when the Utah State job came up. And all these people talking about buying in. And they end up being the biggest daggum hypocrites. They say, players are willing to leave with the drop of the hat the second things get hard, or, they're chasing the money and all that. What are coaches chasing when they leave for a better program? They're chasing money, they're getting a bigger salary, and they're getting bigger resources. So they whine and moan about players going places for money. That's exactly what the coaches are doing.
We can't be upset about the young adults doing what they've just followed the old adults practicing for years.
Yeah, it's this whole do as I say, not as I do. The coaches are becoming the biggest liars and the biggest hypocrites in terms of what they do and, what they think the players should be allowed to do. And I'll tell you, I'm not going to name a name, but there's at least one coach in the Mountain West who basically said, look, the coaches have earned the right to do that and the players haven't. But last I checked, these players can go fight and die in wars. If that came to it. They are voters in America. I'm getting political here. But they can't make their own decisions about money, but coaches can. Coaches can abandon their teams, abandon their players, abandon their principles that they preach. They wear a logo on their chest and they get to rip it off the second they, have a chance at a better spot. But the players can't. There are a lot of four-letter words I want to say right now, but I can't.
Jason needs a minute to cool off, and we'll take a time out here on the Full Court Press. It's good timing. We haven't talked about the new coaches coming to the Mountain West. We got a little bit sidetracked, but let's get into that. Some new coaches named, some coaches who may have been on the hot seat but ended up staying. So talking about patience. One school is giving a lot more patience to their coach than some thought was necessary. We'll talk about that next on the Full Court Press.
When the snow starts flying, be sure your tires are ready. At Express Tire, they work with all vehicles and all tire sizes with safety and comfort a priority. As a Point S Tire team member, you're backed by a nationwide warranty that includes roadside protection. No appointment needed. Just stop in and they'll get your tires winter ready. 3200 North Main.
Express Tire. Tires for less.
Express Auto, where tires and service come together.
This is Jordan with Primrose Home Care and Hospice, and I'm here with Barbara. Barbara, how did you become acquainted with Primrose?
I had been trying to get another company to come and help me, and I had waited about 2 weeks, and I needed a bath. My neighbor suggested that she would make a few phone calls, and that very afternoon, Mark Stokes was sitting in my front room, and he said, "What do you need?"
Primrose Home Care and Hospice. We're your home team.
Since 1896, S.C. Needham Jewelers has been selling diamonds in historic downtown Logan. Today, you have a choice of both natural and lab-grown diamonds. You'll be impressed with the affordability of our diamonds today. With our international suppliers from Israel, India, and Antwerp, Belgium, we're able to guarantee the best price. Simply magnify our diamonds, select your favorite, and have it mounted in a ring of your choice. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7, where Utah gets engaged. S.C. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
The patio is open, the chips are endless, drinks on tap. You know it's got to be Cafe Sabor, Cache Valley's best Mexican restaurant, gold winner in the Best of Northern Utah contest. Experience Locals Day every Thursday with a huge burrito, endless chips and soda, only $7.95. That's a complete lunch for just $7.95. Finding any lunch under $10 is nearly impossible. Every Thursday, drinks, chips, and massive burrito, just $7.95. The patio, the sun, the fun at Cafe Sabor in the historic train station on 6th Weston Center in Logan.
Les Olson IT structured cabling is second to none. Tired of old and inefficient cabling? Have an upgrade or remodel planned? Building a new network from the ground up? We offer the very best in low voltage cabling installation, including data, phone, fiber optic, and more. Ask us how to get your free consultation today.
Les Olson IT.
The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
Yes, that is snow on the mountains, and winter is here. At Young Power Sports in Logan, they're ready for it. Right now, you can still get blowout pricing on all 2025 Ski-Doo and Polaris snowmobiles, up to $6,000 off. And they've got their free pickup and drop-off service, plus free preseason checks on all snowmobiles just off South Main Logan. Young Power Sports Logan, where your winter adventure begins.
You need to update that liner because you say, oh, there's snow up on the mountains. Like, bro, I can see snow outside.
Not just the mountains. It's on the ground, right outside the window.
You can see snow outside of my car. Except I can't because I can't even see my car from here. But
some coaching changes throughout the Mountain West. Before we do that, though, quick text coming in from 9315. Will coaches and players' salary go down now that there will be revenue sharing?
I mean, player salary shifts, although I don't like the way athletic departments are acting. They're not acting like NIL is going to be restricted at all because they're still just giving giant NIL budgets, and NIL Go is kind of a toothless enforcement. Coaches' salaries won't go down because
there's no cap on that.
Yeah, call them idiots, but the rich idiots will still pony up.
I think
for
the
giant buyouts, and then Kalani Sitake is about to get a huge raise from BYU, and he's getting it because he's leveraging another job to get that raise.
Yeah, and leveraging more NIL to his players as well. I think there's, I don't know, but there was a lot of stuff down there
That's
about
where,
there must be jealousy about what's going on with the basketball program, and I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems to be part of the package is to not only increase his salary but also increase NIL opportunities for football.
That's what Lane Kiffin's going to LSU. He's getting like $25 million a year in NIL to work with. He's going to go try and buy the biggest roster he can, and they're basically laughing in the face of NIL Go, trying to restrict anything involving these players.
Because you hadn't heard, Kalani Sitake is staying at BYU. But there's some other coaches staying in their positions. Others are newly introduced throughout the Mountain West Conference. And let's start with those that are staying, not leaving. If there was a coach who hadn't already been fired who was on a hot seat, it'd have to be Jeff Choate at Nevada.
Yeah, this is a guy who's won 6 games.
In 2 seasons.
Yeah, in 2 seasons.
There were moments where they looked like maybe they're going to get better, maybe they're going to turn the corner, but they still struggled to win games. A lot of close losses. But Nevada coming out this week and standing by their coach, preaching patience, as Jason Walker has so eloquently defended. And they are going to give him a little bit more time. Honestly, for me, part of it is, can Nevada really afford to fire a coach and pay another one? Like, they've had a hard time keeping coaches. They're not as resource rich as a lot of other schools in the Mountain West. Not that any school in the Mountain West is really resource rich, but Nevada might be in a position where it's a little bit harder for them to double pay for a head coach.
Yeah, because from just the quick research I was doing, they'd have to pay $2 million, I think as much as $2.7 million. And then I think $2 million after next season. So like that's, for SEC programs, that's the money that falls out of their pockets while they're tying their shoes. But for Utah State, that would be a chunk of change to be looking at. But Nevada, who's already investing a lot of money, I know there's a lot of taxpayer dollars involved. They're investing a lot of money in that new athletics complex, the entertainment district, and all that. Forget all the official terms for it, but they're trying to invest that. But so they're trying to preach patience. Let's let the guy who won 6 games maybe give him a chance. And who knows, it might pay off because next season, if he wins 5 or 6, and heck, it'll be an easier conference next year.
True.
So, hey, if he wins 5 or 6 games next year, you can see an improvement. And if you let a guy stick around long enough, then who knows, maybe he'll manage to pull it off. So we'll see if patience works or if this is just a matter of they know something's wrong, but they just can't afford to get rid of the problem yet.
Coach that has been rumored to have to maybe be leaving, but hasn't left yet, is Dan Mullen for UNLV. A couple different spots have opened up, but his name gets attached to a number of these different positions. But he's still at UNLV. But some of the vacancies that we knew were needing to be filled, notably Colorado State. They announced Jim Mora, and he was officially introduced this week. And Jim Mora making the surprise move from Connecticut, where he had turned that program around, back-to-back 9-win seasons, and leaving that to come to Colorado State and officially introduced this week.
Yeah, there's some people who have been weirdly pessimistic about this hire. And mind you, I've begun to just kind of parrot we can't say whether or not a coaching hire is going to work out because you can never predict that. You say, oh, it's a home run hire, and then 2 years later they're getting fired because they won like 2 games the entire time, and suddenly you're on freezing cold takes. But it's like, the best we have to try and predict success is by previous success. And this is a guy who did pretty well at UCLA, wasn't like superb, but had some pretty good seasons in his early tenure at UCLA. Then he was in the NFL for a little bit, and then he comes back to college and turns around a UConn program that I think over a 4 or 5 year span won like 6 games. Mind you, one of those years was 2020 where they didn't even play.
Yeah.
But that was a program.
It was in a bad situation.
Yeah. Like I think Jim Mora won almost 3 times as many games in the last 2 seasons as UConn won it all. Again, it was like a 4 or 5 year span from like the late 2010s to like the year before.
Since they were last in the Big East.
Yeah, basically. So it's like this is a guy who turned an absolute tragic football program into a back-to-back 9-win season team. If there's any predictor of success, it's going to be something like that. Will it work at Colorado State? Who knows? You would have thought Jay Norvell would have worked because he did some pretty good things at Nevada. Give him more resources at Colorado State. Well, it just didn't work out. So sometimes you think that'll predict success, and it doesn't work. But, you look at what he did at UConn. You look at how solid he was at UCLA. It's like with Bronco Mendenhall. You hired him because of his previous success. Jim Mora has had previous success. So I don't know why there's been some people that have been... I don't think anyone in the Colorado State sphere has been pessimistic about it, but I've seen some fans around the Mountain West who are like skeptical. I'm like, if you're going to be skeptical of him, you should be skeptical of everybody. Not that Jim Mora is like the greatest college coach of all time, but again, previous success is something that he has.
He's figured it out. And, the only worry for me would be how much fire does he still have in the belly? But clearly he has enough.
He's got two UConn seasons. And he's been doing it in the NIL era, which is something that Bronco Mendenhall can't even say.
Yeah. So Colorado State's always been interesting where they spent a lot of money to build that new stadium. They've got decent facilities. But they always seem like they think they're better than they really appear to accomplish and achieve. But interesting to see how Jim Mora works out there in Fort Collins. Now, another coach who, based on having a solid season, could have been on the move, but New Mexico did an extension with Jason Eck, so he's going to stick around a little bit longer. And then another coach being named to a new position, which isn't currently in the Mountain West, but it's in the Pac-12, and Utah State will see this coach across the sidelines next season. Oregon State announced and introduced their new head coach today, Jamarcus Shepard, who has spent time in the Pacific Northwest, spent time at the University of Washington, spent time at Washington State, but most recently was the offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach at Alabama.
Yeah, so full title is assistant head coach, co-offensive coordinator, and wide receivers. So obviously pretty high up on the coaching ladder. Basically, that obviously assistant head coach, the one step below being a head coach. And so just taking the step up to be a head coach, doing so at Oregon State, and as you mentioned, was at Washington State. He followed Kalen DeBoer from Washington to Alabama, so that's where his journey has been. So he has regional ties with some of his previous coaching stops, so makes a lot of sense. And we'll see how things work out.
Oregon State went 2-10 this past year.
Yeah.
Last time they had a winning season was in 2023.
Yeah, Oregon State's had a rough last couple of years. I don't think it's indicative of their program, but we were joking the other day about them being at the bottom of the mountain or the new Pac-12. And hopefully this is a coaching hire that will get them out of what would be the bottom of the Pac-12.
I got to take a time out here in the Full Court Press. Still more to discuss. Let's get your reactions as well. 435-339-0321.
When's the last time you checked your tires? Make sure your car is ready for the snow with Master Auto Tech special, buy 3 tires, get 1 free for up to $200 off. Utah winters are tough, but your tires should be tougher. With 22 Utah locations including Logan, Brigham City, and Ogden, we've got you covered. Hurry, this offer ends December 31st. Visit masterauto.tech today.
Your trusted, helpful expert, Master Auto Tech.
Holiday parties and events at the Riverwoods Conference Center offer a festive and fun holiday atmosphere. Paired with catering from Elements Restaurant, your special occasion can include tasty hors d'oeuvres, delicious entrees, and decadent desserts that always deliver excellence. Now accepting reservations for this holiday season. The Riverwoods Conference Center and Elements Restaurant easily accommodate large or small events. Visit theriverwoods.com or call 750-5151.
Across our valley, families and friends are gathering, sharing meals, stories, and long-held traditions this holiday season. I'm Lance Zollinger, president at Cache Valley Bank. For generations, you've trusted us to be part of your financial journey, and we're honored to be your hometown bank. This season, we wish you joy, safety, and meaningful moments with the people you love. You deserve it. Happy holidays from Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
Winter's here, and that old car sitting in your driveway isn't getting any warmer. Turn that frozen junker into cold, hard cash with DD Auto and Salvage in Logan. It's never too cold, too wet, or too late to clean up and cash out. DD Auto and Salvage makes it quick and easy. They'll even pick it up for you. Get the most money possible for your junk vehicle or scrap metal, and earn a little extra holiday cash while you're at it. Call 787-1204. That's 787-1204. And let DD Auto and Salvage pay you today. DD Auto and Salvage. Cold cars turned into hot cash.
Talking the sports you care about. The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Honestly, I feel like I'm getting ready to watch a high school basketball game. The last 2 songs in our bump music rotation are regularly used by our high school broadcast crews.
Yeah.
Before we continue on, just a reminder about Napa Auto Parts. They can keep your car running at its best. They've got the great personnel on staff. If you need to check your battery or check your wiper blades, you think they might need to be replaced. If you're not really sure if you want to invest in that, they can check on that for you, and if determined that they do need to be replaced, they can help you install it right there on the spot. Multiple locations between Preston and Providence. That's Napa Auto Parts. Jason, we've come to the time of the show and the time of the week where we're supposed to talk about the stat that blew our minds and our player of the week. I forgot about this segment. Should know every Tuesday.
Yeah, I have a stat, though.
At this time, we should discuss these things.
I literally came up with one last second because I happened to scroll through Twitter and find one. And I have a player, or I guess players of the week. Although we do have a texter that has a stat that blew his mind.
Ooh, let's hear it.
5338 said the stat that blew my mind. And Notre Dame's 70-7 blowout of Syracuse last Saturday. Notre Dame scored not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns in the first quarter before their offense ran their first play from scrimmage.
Whoa.
I remember actually saying about that.
Wow.
If I remembered, I would have brought that. But yeah, they were up 21-0 before their offense stepped onto the field.
That's insane.
Yeah, that is pretty insane. Something else insane. This one from Sean Goodwin. I think of the Idaho Statesman, if I remember correctly. It covers Boise State, but he says the last time UNLV defeated, you think Utah State hasn't beaten the Broncos in a while. The last time UNLV defeated Boise State in a football game, Jimmy Carter had just defeated Gerald Ford in the presidential election.
Whoa.
1976, for those of you who don't have your presidential order in your head. So
wow,
yeah, it's been a minute. The Aggies haven't beaten them since 2015. The UNLV hasn't beaten them since Jimmy Carter was president.
And there's a lot of debate going on up in Boise about the starting quarterback situation. Maddox Madsen is going to be cleared to play, and he has been declared as the starter for the conference title game. And some people are saying Cutforth deserves to have that opportunity. But Madsen, you shouldn't lose your starting spot just because you got injured.
Yeah, you can.
As long as you come back and you're... I mean, if the guy who replaces you is like going bonkers, then okay, maybe you should consider
If the guy who replaces you does better, Cutforth just won Offensive Player of the Week.
True.
I can't say for sure, but if the guy behind you plays better, you can lose your job because you got injured. That's a myth that needs to die.
So that's the debate going on in Boise. Thankfully, you don't have to worry about it here. Stick around. A lot more to discuss next hour. We'll get into Utah State basketball. We'll hear from the coach and Mason Foster.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. After a dominant win over the Giants last night, the Patriots are 11-2 and hold the top seed in the AFC. New England's turnaround has been impressive, almost stunning, given the fact where this franchise was a year ago. But the bigger story might not be the Patriots. It might be the complete lack of clarity at the top of the NFL. Look at the AFC. New England, followed by Denver and Jacksonville, 3 teams with talent, but also 3 teams that have taken fans on weekly roller coaster rides with narrow wins and puzzling losses. The NFC, not any different. The Bears are sitting top of the conference, and while it's been a feel-good rise, it also adds to the bigger question. How many of these top seeds can we actually trust? That's not to take anything away from these teams. They have earned their spots, but when you look at the playoff picture as a whole, confidence is really difficult to find at the top of either conference in the NFL. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.